In the darkness of the African savanna, where the wind cuts like a blade and lions sleep far away, there exists something even animals dare not face. TOKOLOSHE, a name whispered by the elders beside the fire, eyes downcast, bodies trembling. They say it's a spirit summoned by black magic, a crawling demon that comes at night, invisible, climbing onto victims' beds like a breathing shadow. Small, yes, but evil to the core. With glowing eyes, rodent-like teeth, and skin as dry as scorched leather, the TOKOLOSHE doesn't kill out of hunger. It kills for fun, out of rage, or vengeance. It slips through the door's crack, climbs up the bed's legs, and sits on the victim's chest until they stop breathing, or until they wish they were dead. Old Gogo Thandi was the spiritual heart of the village of Bondi, a cluster of mud and straw huts surrounded by tall grass and ancestral silence. Shaman, midwife, and storyteller, she knew every child's name and every spirit that roamed the village. They said she bore the mark of the ancients on her palms, lines that moved at night, and that her voice was heard by the bones of the dead. When Thandi died, the night seemed darker. The women wept. The men lit fires. The children felt something different, as if something had been unleashed. The grandmother's body was laid out for 3 days, wrapped in colorful cloths and covered with amulets. Her granddaughter Ao didn't shed a tear. She just stared. She knew something had changed. Thandi always said, "As long as I live, the TOKOLOSHE will not enter this village," and now Thandi was dead. A month had passed since Gogo Thandi's burial. Smoke no longer rose from the shaman's hut. The chickens that once slept near the door now avoided the place. And the children, once restrained by the old woman's presence, ran freely along the red dirt paths and the trails pressed into the savanna grass. Ao, now orphaned of spiritual guidance, spent most of this time in silence. She slept with her eyes open, didn't respond to her mother's calls, seemed to hear something others couldn't. Until one sweltering afternoon, she decided to enter her grandmother's hut. The door creaked as if it had aged a century in 30 days. Inside, the scent of dried herbs and ancestral grease still lingered. Among clay pots, marked bones, and necklaces of animal teeth, Ao found a dark wooden box hidden beneath the elder's straw bed. Inside were thick books covered in tanned skin and symbols carved with a knife. No titles, no explanations, just pages with ancient drawings, eyes, inverted feet, hands with too many fingers. She took the books outside, calling Zinzi, Lethe, and Bizui, her friends of the same age. "Let's play Gogo's magic," Ao said. The others laughed. It was an adventure, a way to pretend to be grown-ups. They went to the edge of the savanna, where the trees bend with the wind and jackals don't approach. There they made a circle with stones, as they'd seen Thandi do. They opened the book and began to repeat sounds written in letters they didn't recognize. And night fell faster than it should have. The makeshift fire crackled at the center of the stone circle. Ao read the words in a tone even she didn't recognize. The language was harsh, strange, but her mouth seemed to know the sounds without ever having learned them. The other girls laughed at first. Zinzi danced around, clapping her hands. Bizui pretended to summon spirits with leaves on her head. Lethe tossed sand into the air as if it were magic dust. But as the sounds repeated, the laughter ceased. The air grew heavy. The flames dwindled despite the absence of wind. And from the bent trees of the savanna came a crack, dry, isolated, like breaking wood. It was the wind, Zinzi said, but the wind there made no sound. Ao closed the book. Her heart raced without reason. Then they heard it, a dragging sound, like nails on dry earth. Something was watching them. Ao turned. Among the trunks, she saw a pair of glowing eyes. Small, round, very low. It wasn't a jackal. It wasn't human. It was patient. The girls ran. They left the book, left everything. Behind them, the eyes blinked once and vanished. That night, no one told the adults. It was just a game, just imagination. But that same night, the village dogs didn't bark. They hid. And the TOKOLOSHE walked alone among the huts for the first time in the village, sniffing, choosing. The village of Bondi was small enough that everyone knew the same day when a child failed to wake. Zinzi's body was found at dawn, lying on a straw mat, eyes open, mouth slightly ajar, without wounds. No blood and no struggle, just a gaze frozen on the clay ceiling. And the mark no one dared touch, a dark circle like wet ash in the center of her chest. The mother screamed until her throat dried. The father dragged the body to the shaman's house, empty for over a month, and begged the ground for answers. But no one responded. The men blamed disease. The women whispered the name not spoken in daylight, TOKOLOSHE. Ao heard everything from afar, beneath the tree where she used to play with Zinzi. She didn't cry. But that night, she lined stones around her bed, as Thandi had once taught. Lethe silently placed an iron spoon beside the door. Bizawi covered all the mirrors in the house. And still, the sound returned, scratching the earth, splashes of thick saliva, and laughter, low, intermittent, from a single being. The next morning, Lethe had a fever, said someone had sat on her chest. He was small, but very heavy on the third day. Lethe also died. After Lethe, silence settled like a disease. Children were forbidden to play outside the huts. Doors were tied with crossed ropes. Talismans hung at every entrance. The men kept watch, but no one slept, and nothing helped. Bizawi was the third. Her mother found her sitting motionless, with her back hunched as if hiding under the blanket. But she wasn't breathing, and the blanket was dry, despite the urine soaking the floor. She had died of fear, literally. No one spoke the creature's name anymore. No prayers, no candles. The entire village embraced silence. Only Ao remained, the quietest, the one who read the words. That final night, she didn't close her eyes. She sat in a fetal position, surrounded by stones, beside an old necklace of her grandmother's. But it was too late. He was already inside her room. The sound began at 3 in the morning. As always, slow claws, wet laughter, and the smell, rotten, warm, like old meat left in the sun. She looked at the door and saw low eyes, and a smile with curved teeth where there shouldn't be a mouth. Ao didn't scream, didn't run. She just accepted. And at dawn, the adults found her with wide eyes, and the black mark over her heart. The village of Bondi fell silent for 3 days. No one buried the girls in the common cemetery. They were taken to the forest separately, and heavy stones were placed over the graves, as if that could contain what had already been released. But the TOKOLOSHE didn't stay, now that it had been summoned. It was free. That same week, in a neighboring village, a child woke in the middle of the night, looked at the ceiling, and saw low, glowing eyes, and the sound of small laughter. After Ao's death, the village of Bondi was never the same. Children began sleeping tied to their mother's arms. The men, once proud hunters, now avoided going out at night. No one whistled at dusk anymore. No one told stories. Thandy's hut was burned in a desperate attempt to erase any trace of what had been unleashed. But the smoke's smell seemed heavier than that of fire. It was like burning a warning. The following week, they sent for a new shaman from a distant village. Someone who could raise protections, rebuild the circle of salt and silence that Thandy had maintained with her presence. But the man who came refused to enter. He stood at the trail's edge, looked at the houses, and said only, "Something walks among you." Something that was summoned. And now, it's listening. Then he turned his back and was never seen again. Since then, Bondi faded away. Families moved. The houses were swallowed by the bush. And at night, it's said that if you crossed that part of the savanna and stopped to rest, you might hear small laughter in the dark and feel something light climbing up your legs, slowly, warm, and with eyes that never blink. And you? Would you call upon something that doesn't return to where it came from? Something that crawls invisibly in the dark, that smiles before it touches, and laughs while you try to understand if it's still a dream or already the end. The TOKOLOSHE doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't knock on the door, doesn't scratch the window. It just comes when it's called. And when it arrives, it doesn't come alone. It brings with it silence. It brings the weight on your chest. It brings eyes that never close again. And when it's done playing with those who awakened it, it doesn't return to what they call hell. It goes after more. If this story left you with a chill that hasn't passed, comment below. From which corner of the world would you like to hear about the next creature that should never be released? Because sometimes the true curse isn't calling. It's surviving and having to sleep the next night, knowing it's still smiling. And now it knows your name.